Hey guys, and welcome back to the poker vlog. No fancy intro this time because I'm not in Vegas anymore. I'm back home here in Germany. But before we start into the episode, I want to say something, and it's thank you. Thank you for all the new subscribers. The last two videos were amazing. The amount of subscribers and likes under my video were superb. I really appreciated that, and I wanted to say thank you. And of course, to my regular OG viewers, I want to say thank you as well. Thanks for watching my videos, and if you watched this video and haven't subscribed so far, you can click the little subscribe button down below, and I would really appreciate that as well. And yeah, don't want to get too cheesy, let's go into the episode. We are back at our bread and butter stakes, €2, €2 blinds. I'm in the game for €300 this time, a little deeper than usual, and let me tell you something about this game. There is no max buy-in, so when it gets late, the game plays pretty deep. Another thing you can do, you can straddle from every position to every amount you want. So sometimes there will be ridiculous pots pre-flop because someone straddles to 20 or even more. And in this episode you will see so many straddle pots which get us in huge pots with marginal hands, but let's go into the first hand. We started the session at around 9:40 PM and it took us around 20 minutes to pick up our first hand. But what we see in these 20 minutes, that the action on this table is so crazy and so ridiculous. Every single pot is at least straddled to €5, sometimes more, and especially compared to the 1-3 game at Vegas, which was so tight, this table is so loose and splashy. I'm already in a gamble mood as well. So as said, we pick up ace-4 of diamonds here in the hijack and we see a button straddle to 5. The blinds get out of the way, but the under the gun player limps. I decide to ISO raise here, I raise to 20. The button straddler decides to call, but now the under the gun limper decides to jam for 71 total. I already saw him making so many loose and splashy plays, so I think my hand could be definitely good here. I think the better move is to reshove all in to isolate this player, but at the moment I decide just to call, and yeah, that invites the button player as well, who calls the 71 as well, and we see a flop 3 ways of king 8-6 with 2 spades and 1 club. We whiffed completely here, we check, the button checks back. The turn brings the queen of spades, so no improvement at all for our hand. I check, the button checks as well, and on the river we see the 10 of diamonds. We sit here with ace high, of course we check, the button checks back. Under the gun wins with queen 5 offsuit. So my read was correct here, and you guys get an idea of how loose this table was this evening. Let's go into the next one. Only 7 minutes later we pick up king queen offsuit in the cutoff. The €5 straddle is on, this time from the under the gun position, and there is one limp before me. As in the previous hand, I try to isolate here, I raise to 20, but to our surprise only under the gun calls and the limper gets out of the way. We see a very nice flop of king queen 4 with 2 clubs and 1 heart. Because we are very strong, I don't want to scare my opponent away, and I only bet 20. He decides to call and we see the 9 of hearts on the turn. Brings in the backdoor flush draw. There are 2 flush draws on board now and the board is very connected now. So after my opponent checks to me, I size up a little and bet 50 here. Under the gun relatively quickly rejams for my effective stack and puts me all in. There is no other option than to call here. If my opponent has jack 10, so be it. But let's see a river first. The river is not clean for us, it brings in the 6 of clubs, but we get positive news because my opponent rolls over queen 9 offsuit. So we definitely beat that with our top 2 pair and we scoop in a very nice pot. The next hand is literally the next hand that was dealt. I have to catch up with the action here because I started late to record this hand, but yeah. We are in the hijack here with queen 9 of hearts and there is a limp before me and I raise to 10. The button and the limper decide to call and we see a flop 3 ways. The dealer rolls over 9-7-5 with 2 hearts, so pretty nice board for us, and after the limper checks to me, I bet 20. The button behind me decides to call, but at least the limper gets out of the way. We see a nice turn as well in form of the queen of clubs. So we have top 2 pair right now and the flush draw to go along with, so I think I want to keep betting here and I bet 50. The button is not done with the hand yet and he decides to call again. We see the 5 of diamonds on the river and I think that's a pretty safe card. All of the flush draws bricked, all possible straight draws bricked. My opponent could have a 5 sometimes here, but that is kinda unlikely since he called 2 streets here. And I don't think betting here is the best way to to get some value because all of the weak hands that missed here on the river would definitely fold. So I think checking to induce a bluff from this kind of hands is the best way here. So I decide to check. My opponent takes a little time but then decides to bet. And he bets pretty big for 150. Almost a pot size bet. This bet sizing pauses me for a little bit, but after some time I have to stick to my plan here and call. I think he would bet this amount with all his bluffs as well. So after a small time of consideration, I stick in the 150, but we get the bad news because my opponent rolls over 6-8 of clubs. So he flopped the straight, turned the backdoor flush draw, and yeah, got max value from me on the river. Ugh. After that hand, I rebuy for another 200, so we are in the game for 500 total now. Let's turn this around, please. If you haven't believed me so far that the table is pretty loose and splashy, this hand will definitely change your mind, I guess. Here I have ace-4 of hearts in the under the gun position and we see a straddle to 10 from the low jack. The button calls, the big blind calls, and I decide to call as well, and it folds to the low jack, who only has 100 euro effective, and he decides to jam all in. I'm not even sure if he has looked in his cards, and yeah, he is super loose and splashy. The button, who is also super loose and splashy this session, calls the 100, and I definitely think I have the best hand here. And again, like in the first hand, I think it's better to reshove here, maybe isolate the player, but in the situation I again decide to just call here, and we are 3 ways in a massive bloated pot already and go to a flop of queen 7-5 with 2 diamonds and 1 club. So far we are not running good in these massive straddled pots. I decide to check and the button checks as well. We see the king of clubs, which we both check again, and the queen of hearts on the river, which we also decide to check. We have to show our cards. The button shows jack 8 of hearts, so we beat that at least, but the low jack, who definitely didn't look at his cards, shows us 7 deuce offsuit, and he wins this massive pot with 7 deuce because he hit the pair on the flop. Yeah, on to the next one. The next hand is like the previous ones, pretty ridiculous and just very loose. There's a button straddle to 5, I'm in the small blind and I re-straddle to 10. Under the gun now decides to triple straddle to 25. Alright, we get dealt the cards and it folds to me. I just have 180 euro in my stack and I only peel 1 card and it's the ace of spades. It doesn't matter what the next card is, I only have 7 big blinds, so I rip it in here for 180 total. It folds to the low jack, who looks at his cards and he shows us 9-6 offsuit, but decides to fold. We scoop in the small pot uncontested without seeing a flop. Yeah, the action speaks for itself this evening. It's 20 minutes before midnight and in this hand I put on the straddle, this time for 9 euro. We see 5 limbs before me and I look down at ace-5 of clubs. I only have around 19 to 20 big blinds with 175 left in my stack, and with all the dead money in the pot, I think the all-in play is the best play here, so I shove all in for 175. Most of the players get out of the way, but the under the gun player calls for a little less, in fact for 132 total. The other players behind him get out of the way as well, and we see a board, no more action. The dealer rolls over 6-6-4 with 2 diamonds and 1 club. The turn brings the 9 of clubs and the river is pretty fortunate for us, it brings the queen of clubs. So we have the nut flush here, but it doesn't matter at all because our opponent shows us jack 8 of spades, so we were ahead of him all the time and we scoop in the nice pot. A big surprise happens in the next hand because there is no straddle, but I have to catch up with the action a little bit. I'm on the button with 10-9 offsuit and we see a usual raise to 6 euro from the under the gun player. There are 2 calls before me and I decide to make a questionable call here on the button, and the big blind calls as well. So we see a flop 5 ways and it comes queen 9 deuce with 2 hearts and 1 diamond. Under the gun c-bets pretty small for 10 and the cutoff before me calls. I decide to call as well here with my second pair, already dreaming of another 9 on the turn. The other 2 players get out of the way and we see a turn. The dealer rolls over the 9 of clubs. Magical card for us, but the under the gun player slows down now. He checks and the cutoff checks as well. I definitely want to build a pot now, and in the end I decide to bet 30. Maybe I should bet a little bigger here, but I will definitely think about my bet sizings here in general. I got a lot of comments under my last 2 videos that my bet sizing most of the time is way too small, and I definitely have worked on that, and I think you will see this in the next vlog. So you have to stay tuned for the next one as well. Then you may see optimized bet sizes from me, but so far, as played, I bet 30 and only the undergun player calls. We see the jack of clubs on the river and at least the obvious front door flush draw bricked, and under the gun decides to check to me. I think most of the time he will hold a queen here, and I really want to get a call from this one pair type holding. So I again decide to bet not too big, this time for 55. He goes into the tank for a little bit for about 30 seconds, but then decides to call. I turn over my hand and we are good. About 15 minutes later he told me he called with pocket aces. Okay, I'll take that and let's go on to the next one. In the next hand we have 9-7 of spades in the hijack. There's a button straddle to 8 and the big blind decides to call. I raise this pot up here to 28 and both of them decide to call. So we see a flop 3 raise of 10-8-6. But all diamonds. We flopped a straight on a monotone board, not too bad, but not feeling too great as well. After the big blind checks to me, I can't check this back. I size up, I bet 55 here. The button folds immediately and the big blind gives it some thought, but open folds king 7 of hearts. Okay, nice fold. We take this one on to the next one. After that hand, it's already after 1 AM and the table is short now. We are just 5-handed and we decided to play some PLO instead of hold'em. My notes were not on point on this PLO hands, but I actually managed to get unstuck and booked a little profit at the end, but see yourself at the session update. What an insane session and what an insane evening. It's not that often that this table gets that crazy. I mean, most of the players are pretty loose and my playstyle gets a little looser as well, but to call all ins or get it all in with hands like ace-5 clubs, ace-4 suited and stuff like this is not usually part of my game. But it worked out this time and we were right most of the times. But yeah, I'm happy to book the win here. I was in the game for 500 euro total and out of the game for 650. So we booked a profit of 150 euro. Feels good after we were down a bunch at the beginning. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. If so, leave a like under the video, subscribe if you haven't so far, and see you in the next one. Goodbye guys.